Hello, fellow aspirants. This is me, Dr. Jagdish Jagtap, and in today's podcast, we'll be learning about the role of women during India's freedom struggle. To begin with, the Indian thinkers and a few European well meaning thinkers understood that the degraded condition of Indian women was taken as an indicator of India's inferior position in the hierarchy of civilizations. To simplify this, if India had to prosper, its women had to be empowered. So we see a process of reform which began in the 19th century. It had a few characteristics. First and foremost, it was led by male reformers mostly. So reformers like Swami Dayanand, Rajaram Mohan Roy, and Swami Vidyasagar, they led the movement for reform in Indian society and female empowerment. Then we see that they had to look behind, that they had to go into history and find justification for female empowerment through shastras and ancient Indian norms. Then again, we have a few female reformers also, but they are very few and far in between. That is, we have some women like Pandita Ramabai, Tarabai Shinde, Begum Rakhia Hussain, and Sister Subbalakshmi, who also spearheaded their reform. This reform got a little help from colonial administration also, in the form of Bethune, Lord Bentinck, and Hunter Commission, to name a few. But there were many colonial administrators who actively participated in female empowerment. Now we have to understand a few concepts. First is the domesticization of women. What happened here is increasingly females were confined to domestic roles. That is, only they had to work for only for the reproductive functions and for the cooking functions and taking care of children. They were confined to those roles. That is called as domesticization of women. And there's one more term called as sensitization in sociology. It says that lower social groups or lower caste group try to emulate higher social groups and caste groups in all aspects. So we can see this effect here, that systems like ghungat and parda. Now in case of parda, the higher nawabs and all practice this, so the lower social groups also started practicing that, so that they could gain a higher ritual status in the hierarchy. Same case applies to the ghungat also. Now let us see the effect of industrialization on women. Now let us take an example. Rice husking is a female activity, or usually done in the homes. But when rice mills came, it became a male domain, that more men were employed in the rice mills. Then in search of work, men migrated to cities, and females, like the women folk, were left behind, and they had to live in abject poverty and face many societal problems. Secondly, when poverty became unbearable, the women migrated to the cities. But even there, they had to live in extreme poverty, and they were given secondary treatment by the capitalists, miners, and plantation owners also. So they were given very less salaries, horrible working conditions, horrible working hours. Concepts today, which we feel are very common, like maternity leave, they were not even known. You should think of those in those days. Now let us see the role of the Congress, or more broadly speaking, of the national movement in women empowerment. So they began referring to India as mother or motherland. Vande Mataram means Hail Mother. Then Abhinandranath Tagore painted a painting of Bharat Mata. This is the painting which he painted, and it became a symbol of India. But it was counterproductive for the women, because it kind of reflected their mythological strengths, but the ground reality or their ground situation was ignored. Women actively participated in the Swadeshi movement, but this was also within the boundaries of accepted gender roles. That is, they showed their protest by observing non-cooking days, crushing glass bangles, and a little bit of procession. But apart from that, the participation was minimal. Then we have Annie Besant, who was the Congress president in 1917. Then Sarojini Naidu, Congress president in 1925, and that she demanded female franchise. Now this is a very important demand. Now this is a seminal event in Indian history. Advent of Gandhiji on the scene. Gandhiji altered many things in Indian politics, but very importantly, and it is mostly ignored, that he transformed the way women were looked at in politics. So here, his first and foremost contribution was that he focused on sisterhood rather than motherhood of women, thereby negating women's sexuality. This is a very important statement. Secondly, he realized capacity of women for making sacrifices and political potential of women in 1913 in South Africa, and this lesson he applied in India also. But he did not adopt revolutionary positions. He accepted the natural division of labor. That is, the women are responsible for domestic duties. He accepted this, but he redefined political participation by creating a space for politics at home. This is important. The women could participate by picketing, spinning, and shaming the male counterparts into action. Slowly, after each successive movement, the participation of women increased. Now here we see in the civil disobedience movement, processions, salt manufacture, and active picketing took place. We can have an example of the famous Dharasana salt satyagraha, where Sarojini Naidu led the movement when Gandhiji was arrested, and men and women actively faced the blows of the British police to make that movement successful. Apart from this non-violence movement, we have violent revolutionary movements, and we have examples of Pritilada Vaddedar and Kalpana Datta. Now these were very courageous women. At the age of 21, Pritilada Vaddedar, she stormed a European club which had a sign reading "No Indians and dogs not allowed," and she fired at the Europeans inside. And before she could be captured, she took a pill of cyanide. Even Kalpana Datta actively participated in the Chittagong raids. Now let us look at the women's organizations which were formed during that time. The Congress formed the Rashtriya Stri Sangha. The Women's India Association in Madras was formed by Margaret Cousins. Now Margaret Cousins is a single lady. It's not Margaret Cousins. It's a single lady with the name Margaret and surname Cousins, and Annie Besant. Then the National Council of Women was formed in 1925 by Lady Mehribai Tata. An All India Women's Conference in 1927 was again formed by Margaret Cousins. So she is an important lady. We might have to quote her name in some answers. Then the Bharat Stri Mahamandal was formed by Sarla Devi Chaudhrani, and then the Bangiya Nari Samaj was formed in Bengal. But we have to remember one thing, that these women's organizations, they did not participate in mass agitations. They relied morely on petitions. Then we can see some incremental development. That is, in 1935, women got a few reserved seats, and the franchise was given in ratio 1:5. Then we have the Sarda Act, which increased female age for marriage to 14 years and 18 years for male. Then in the Quit India movement, we see that all frontline male leaders were arrested. So the onus of the movement fell upon the female leaders also. So we have Suchita Kriplani, who put forth non-violent resistance. Then we have Aruna Asaf Ali and Usha Mehta, who did underground revolution activity, and she is Aruna Asaf Ali. When Gandhiji asked her to advised her to surrender, she politely declined Gandhiji's advice and kept on her struggle. Then we have a communist movement in the Tebhaga movement, which was a communist movement, and Telangana movement. Both these had large participation of women. These were led by communists, and we have Nari Vahinis which were formed over there. The Indian National Army incorporated Rani Lakshmibai Regiment led by Captain Lakshmi Sehgal. And then even the Muslim League also tried to incorporate women into the politics. And finally, this is a blot, but women suffered lot of atrocities during partition. To protect their honor, even their own family members murdered them before like embarking on the journey of participation. So this is a blot on both the sides of the border, these atrocities. We can have few practice questions for the mains, that is, discuss how the Indian national movement empowered the women of India. This is a straightforward question. Secondly, critically analyze Gandhiji's role in political and social empowerment of India. So the question is critically analyze, so we'll have to be critical also. So how he accepted the division of labor, natural division of labor, and tried to encompass women struggle and in the boundaries of the middle class notion of women. And finally, point out the drawbacks of the women's movement in India. So thanks a lot for watching this podcast. And now let me indulge in some shameless propaganda. Please like, share and subscribe to sustain this initiative. Shameless propaganda over. Thank you. Keep studying and have an awesome day.